So this is a video about how to make these closed cell foam swords, which are a new design I've come up with using cat mat foam. The reason I came up with this design is because this cat mat foam is very cheap. You can get it at places like Walmart for under $6, a whole roll for 6 feet of it. In bigger pieces it looks, it's longer and wider, and you roll it out. And then I've cut it into segments that I'm going to use for this this video, and so you can see how to make the swords. I'm going to go through all the materials that I'm using so you know what you need before you start a project like this, and how I've gotten them all. I have razor blades. That's the main tool for cutting anything. These razor knives are really good. I use them all the way out and locked. They're much more functional than pushing them way back in. You can't do much with them that way, but as a long blade out, they work pretty well. You'll need a ruler anytime. A silver for everything else, and this is just a Nashua, something you can get at Home Depot pretty easily. You'll need Gorilla Tape, which is a much more heavy-duty tape, very thick and tough. You only use it for certain places, which you'll see. I've got another roll of duct tape here. It's the same type as this, but what I've done is I've taken a razor blade and I've cut it down the middle just a bit to get it going into a half segment. You'll see why that's important later as I get into the video. You don't really have to do this, but it will save you a lot of time if you make a roll like that for yourself. You'll need some kind of a very thick foam. This is a mouse pad foam. You could buy a mouse pad. It's used for typing. You could rest your wrists on it and then you would type like that. But we've recycled it into thruster tip foam. I've cut it into these little squares like that. It works really, really well, but make sure you get something thick enough, because this is really the main safety feature. So you won't want anything to go wrong with that. So that's mouse pad foam. You'll need just a small little tiny wedge of open cell foam. This is what you'd find in a couch. It's very soft, much softer than this, and it's for the point. And you don't need very much, as you can see, just a small wedge about 1 inch wide. You don't necessarily need a knife sharpener, but I like to keep all my tools very sharp. So as I'm working, I sharpen the blades. It makes everything go faster. If you get a dull blade, your work slows down a lot.
Quality goes down too.
Yeah, quality goes down a lot. So some things about cutting these. I've cut the cat mat foam down into these 1 inch strips. So this is 1 inch by 2 feet 3 inches is the length that I got. See, it's about 3 inches longer than the sword than the sword rod that I've chosen. This is a short sword I'm going to be making. The video here is not necessarily just about making short swords. I'm going to make a short sword right here so you can see, but that's just to teach you how to make a sword. Once you have made a short sword, you can then apply that to making broadswords, long swords, ninja twos, wakasashis, any kind of sword, because you'll have learned the basic principles and you can apply them to all the other weapons you make. So this is more about building swords, not just about just short swords. So what I'm making right now is a short sword. I have a fiberglass rod. These are electric fence posts. They're electric fence posts, and they you can find them at Friedman's or it's 3/8 inch diameter, so it's a pretty thin gauge. It's the smallest gauge you can usually get for an electric fence post. Very, very strong. The reason I use this instead of bamboo is that it's almost indestructible when it comes to combat, so that the swords last longer. So I'm going to take you through the steps, and then hopefully by the end you'll be able to make your own sword. So the first step is to prepare your rod for safety. So I've cut some things here, which I'll get to in a minute, but you want to make sure that this piece, the core, is very safe. So you take your Gorilla Tape, and you're going to take a small piece. Gorilla Tape is really sticky and very thick, and so I use it for the parts that I want to make sure don't get cut. Fiberglass can sometimes cut through duct tape, especially if you're using it a lot to thrust. So what I do is I make a little flag on the top there, and just tape it on like that. It's very, very sticky. And then I push down this flat part to cover the tip, like that. And then I roll it a bit more, just a bit, and keep it going. And it doesn't really have to be perfect, but what you're trying to do is get as much of this Gorilla Tape covering the tip of that as kind of like a pad as you can, and I just folded it close. So that's just gotten a little pad. Now that's not really going to keep anybody from getting saying ow if you poke them with it, but it's definitely going to keep them from this fiberglass from cutting through surfaces. So you're just trying to keep the fiberglass from tearing up your sword as you use it over the years. So you take another piece, do the same thing to the back end. You're going to put a little duct tape on there, or Gorilla Tape on there, tape it down, press down the flag, push it up a bit, same thing. Try to get as much of it covering the tip as you can, and fold it down. So now both ends are safety protected, and that's just going to keep this rod from tearing up my sword. The next step is to put a thruster tip on the end and a knockout tip on the bottom. I've pre-cut these little small pieces of the same type of foam, and one goes on the back, and it's just a precaution when you knock for knockout. You'll see as we go along. This is the really important piece. This is a thruster tip. It's a really tough foam. You could get an EvaTech foam they have, and an EvaTech foam would work as well, but this is the mouse pad foam. So the next step, I'll do the thruster tip first, the most important part. And this step I would take as much time as you need, because this step, if it ever fails, is the one step that could really injure somebody. So you roll up a tube of Gorilla Tape. Make sure it's Gorilla Tape. Don't use duct tape. Duct tape will wear out. So you take your Gorilla Tape and you put that tube right on the tip. So now you've got a long, sticky object. You take this mouse pad foam and you put it on the tip like that, and push it down. Now there's two sides to this, and you want to push them down too, and fold them down like that. And make sure you've still got a good connect with that mouse pad foam right there. Make sure it's centered. You want to push around a bit and make sure it's not going way off to one side. Take some more Gorilla Tape, not too big of a piece, but bigger than you just did. Set it on before like you had, like a flag, like that. And this you want to really pull tight. This has to be really strong. So this is one of the times when you're really going to crush down and make sure that this thruster tip is really secured, really strong. Now, I used to use cork for this step, but we found over time that cork degrades, breaks apart, so really the foam is the best. Now, as another step, this is to keep it from folding again, and this step we found to be really important, even though it doesn't seem like it's really important. So you take this Gorilla Tape and you go much further down, right here, but you're getting about halfway on and halfway off, and you push it down and you're wrapping this around, and what this is doing is it keeps the Gorilla Tape that I just put on from unraveling at any point, and also it creates a slow transition slope. And that's really important because now if you notice when I push, it will not fold at all. It doesn't flop over at all because it's got a slow tapered transition, and that's what makes a really good thruster tip. So spend time on this step and you'll have really good swords. So that's that. Now on the bottom, much easier. You can use duct tape. Doesn't really matter that much. This is just a slight precaution. You put that on the end there. Put a little duct tape on it. So now you've got this little bit of cat mat foam in the center there, and you wrap it like that. Get it all the way wrapped around, and just there. That's just to make the sword making process easier later. Now, if you don't have access to any of this EvaTech or this cat mat foam, it's conceivable that you could use some of this and cut it into shape and use it at the tip there, because this is a pretty good dense foam, and it will probably work just fine. I don't recommend it. I think this is a much better material, but you may not have access to this. So if you don't have access to this, you could use just some of the cat mat foam. So now I've prepared my blade. The next step is to put the blades on, blade sides. I'm going to pick one piece. This has been cut to 1 inch by 2 feet 6 inches, and as you can notice, as I planned, it fits perfectly. Because that was an extra 6 inches, that's the part I added, and that's the part I added. So I fit that onto the edge, make sure it's nice and flat, take a little bit of my duct tape, and I'm just going to secure it, press it in a bit, put a little duct tape on there, and I'm really just trying to get it to be connected, but I'm not really going to be too touchy about whether or not it's perfectly connected, because this is just so I can work with it without it falling off. I'm just going to get both ends is all I'm going to do. Just a little piece there, flip it over. Just make sure that it's not going to fall away from me while I work.
Thank you for watching how to make new swords. If you would like to go back to this video, click right there. If you would like to watch the next one, click right there. If you want to check out the Fanmore website, click right there, there. And if you want to check out my channel, click there.